are listening to the Jboy Show, your number one source for Auburn and the SEC.
My goal was to run through his soul and grab his heart when I run through his soul.
Kurt, Nate, Coach Dab. Those are memories.
I think we've established ourselves as, I think, the premier conference in college football.
Now, the SEC is better at the top. It's better in the middle.
The Southeastern Conference remains the premier conference.
Now takes the snap. Looking for the receiver. He's got Lutz and Kirkland. Touchdown, Auburn!
Think about it. It's always been the SEC and everybody else trying to catch it.
I think this is probably the best league from a competitive venue standpoint.
They have the most capable teams. You just look at those programs, the way they recruit, how they invest.
Snap to Burrow. 3 steps. Fires. Back corner of the end zone. Over the shoulder catch. Did he hold on? He did. Justin Jefferson. Touchdown, Tiger.
And now, your host, Jboy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another special edition of the Jboy Show, your favorite new SEC sports podcast. And we are very, very lucky to be joined by a pair that have a unreal podcast that I'm sure you guys are going to check out after this. And that's Ben Verlander and Michelle Margaux from Millennial Sports Talk on the Believe Network. Guys, how's it going?
Good. Thank you so much for the high praise.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm going to have to get used to having multiple people on. Typically, I only have one person on, so I'm going to try not to talk over you and try to maybe lead into the question to the person, maybe like a moderator.
That's perfect.
Yep. All right. Well, Michelle, I want to kind of start with you, and there's a big question, that's kind of looming over everything in the football world right now. And do you think there's going to be a season? Do you think there needs to be a season, kind of with where we're at right now?
As it pertains to football?
Yes.
I think that it's all going to depend on how basketball and baseball go. Because I think if they can make it work and they can figure out a system, then I think there's just so much money that goes into football that they're going to have to do something to make it work. Whether or not fans will be there, I don't know. And I would guess no. But yeah, Ben, what do you think?
I do agree with you. I think it has a lot to do with how smoothly baseball and NHL and NBA can get off the ground. But, in terms of the NFL, I know they've already canceled a few preseason games. And when it comes to college football, I work for an events company in Virginia, and we run like all the major sporting events in the state, and UVA football is one of them. So we're kind of talking to them about ACC football and how that's going to go. And, everyone's staying so, positive about it. And, maybe just Power 5 conferences will play each other. But I don't know, man. I think it's going to be really, really tough, especially, you look at all these other sports and they have all these precautions in place and they're flying their teams private. And when it comes to college football, you can't really do that. You can't afford to fly your team private all around the country. And, a lot of their money comes from gates. And if you're not going to pack your stadium, if you're Alabama and you're not packing your stadium every Saturday, I don't know how and maybe they're not the best example because they have a lot of money coming in from boosters.
Well, no, I get where you're coming from. The thing that I find interesting, and you brought up the Power 5 is what it really affects is the group of 5 teams. Because, the teams like Alabama and Texas and even Auburn, they have the ability and the resources to test these players whenever, wherever, however, doesn't matter, to be able to quarantine them effectively. There's some conferences and some teams that just don't have the money to be able to do those things and also be able, like you said, without having the gate, now your revenue's gone. The thing that I find interesting, Ben and Michelle, is it's a machine that's been running so smoothly for so long, and it's been such an absolute moneymaker because football in general, you can even separate the NFL and college, are both billion-dollar industries, and they've really never had a quirk other than maybe a new playoff system in college football or expanding the wild card in NFL. So I'm just very interested to see what happens when they have to turn the machine off, if they have to, and I think the recoil of that, especially down here in SEC country, is going to be something that everybody feels, not just on Saturday.
I definitely think part of it too is and there seems to be more of a liability with students from the college aspect, whereas the NFL players, there seems to be less of, I don't want to say pity, but people are like, oh, well, they're making millions of dollars. Whereas there's something when it comes to kids that people just have a soft spot for, and not that student athletes in college are necessarily children, but there's just something about being called a student that I think makes a difference when it comes to the health and safety of the players too.
Yeah, that's a great point. Ben, what do you kind of think about if that machine being turned off? Because, I mean, you know as well as I do, they really just sit back and let it ride.
Yeah. You know, the worry to me isn't necessarily the Power 5 conferences. I truly think there's going to be a long-lasting effect for a decade or decades on these non-Power 5 conferences that, you know, let's use, we're close and I work with JMU. Let's use JMU as an example. They go play a Power 5 conference. Let's say they go play Alabama. They're getting $1 million+ to go play there. That's how they make all of their money and fund all of their sports. So my worry is if you're just going to do Power 5 play or not have football to begin with, it's really, really going to have a long-lasting effect on these smaller schools. And that worries me, because that's a trickle-down effect. Football pays the bills for 99% of colleges for all sports. So if you don't have that team that's capable of going to play Alabama and Texas and bringing in millions of dollars by doing that, you can't fund your other sports. And you're already seeing it. You're already seeing programs cut, 10 to 15 sports, and there's just no money to fund them. So that's my big worry, is the trickle-down effect that'll come from it.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And kind of last question, and we'll move on from this topic, is I think another interesting dynamic here is that you have all the uncertainty of being able to play in that side of it, kind of colliding with the NCAA image and likeness deal now, where, players are going to be able to be compensated, for their image and their name. How do you're almost fighting a war on two fronts against two totally different opponents. And I'm just wondering, how long does that put that on the back burner, and how long will student athletes, put up with that now that it's kind of been given the go ahead? But Michelle, what do you think about that?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Sorry. I heard what you said, but just that.
So basically what I'm asking, I can rephrase it better, is you have the uncertainty of the coronavirus deal colliding with the NCAA image and likeness deal, where the student athletes are now being able to be compensated, for endorsements and stuff like that. I wonder, if you obviously don't have the funds to be able to do these things, how long is that going to be put off on the back burner? Not only because you're not playing, but I just think it's a very interesting dynamic.
Well, can't they still be compensated for that not playing necessarily?
See, that's my question though. How do you get endorsements if you're not playing? Because again, at the end of the day, being a 5-star and all that hype out of high school is nice. That's cool and everything. And they're not going to get compensated for that. What they're going to get compensated for is when they go on the field and they get 3 touchdowns in the Red River rivalry and they're finalists for the Heisman, and all of a sudden you see them on a Gatorade commercial, or, if people are buying their jersey, it has their name on the back of it and they're able to get paid for it. But if you're not able to play,
you're saying the exposure is not going to be there because of the playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I think there's so much unknown. I don't think anyone knows. Anyone can predict anything at this point.
Yeah, I find it so interesting that those two things are basically happening at the same time. Ben, you kind of see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it's bad. It's bad timing for the NCAA. People have been fighting for this for years. The athletes have, and to have it happen this year. It's like everything's now colliding. Like, the athletes finally got the ability to be able to get paid for name and likeness, and at the same time, this pandemic has hit. Yeah. And it's just like the NCAA's got to be like freaking out. Like, we finally do something that's gonna cost us a little more, and then we're like depleting our. It's like
it's good
like
PR finally. It's good PR finally for the NCAA.
100%. Yeah.
I find that dynamic just so funny, and I think it's going to put it on the back burner. I'm just interested to see how long, but I want to move kind of into the basketball realm. And there's a question, Michelle, I've been wanting to ask you, and I kind of hinted at it on the pre-show, and it's something that has affected Auburn for one. I'll be honest with you, and it's kind of the G League's push to get some of the top talent and really kind of grabbing kind of more than what we're used to, or maybe it affected the college game more this year. Do you think we're going to start to see? I had Paul Biancardi come on and talk about these NBA academies. Do you think we're going to start to see some of those pop up and snatch some of these high school kids out?
To be completely honest, I can tell you my opinion on it. I don't know. I can't predict, but
yes,
I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I really value the college experience. Not just, I mean, obviously the education is important for student athletes, but I would say if you asked 100 athletes who went to college and played in college, if they would have done it over again and gone straight professionally, I don't think that they would say that they wanted to do that. I think that the college experience is so important, and I think there's something about like the biggest difference for me when I watch college basketball versus the NBA is defense, because in college there's just so much to defend, there's so much pride, and NBA is much more individual based, and I don't like that direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is.
And so I hope that they don't start training and grooming kids from a younger age to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, it's something to wear. And I think, Ben, the question there's another side to the coin, and it's saying that, okay, well, if a kid's good enough, if a team thinks that he's worth that and they're willing to spend, $500,000 and give endorsement deals to Jalen Green like they did this past recruiting cycle, is that maybe you start getting guys going to college that stay for 2 or 3 years. And that's when you really get those good NCAA tournaments, is when you have teams with those veteran guards, you know what I'm saying, that can, Auburn's a great example with Jared Harper and Bryce Brown a few years ago, guys that, were 3-4 years into the program and they took it all the way to the Final Four. So do you think it may actually help the quality of play in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I could see it working out that way. In my opinion, a lot of these guys, and, if these leagues start popping up that, take high school players and then they go straight to the league, in my opinion, that could end up hurting the NCAA. But, you look at a guy like Zion, who was going to stay at Duke. He was going to stay another year, and he was the consensus number 1 pick. He was the consensus best college player we've seen in a decade. And he literally said, I'm going to stay. And Coach K is the one that said, you know what, just go. And I think there's something to that. I think once you get on a college campus, everything changes. When you're a high school kid thinking about your dream of playing in the NBA, my word, once kids get to college, they want to stay. But when you're in high school, all you can see is the money in the NBA. And my worry is that it's going to deter some kids from going to college. But I am hopeful that once they get there, more and more will want to stay. And like you said, it's really going to help, especially if guys stay for 2-3 years. I mean, the product that will be out there is just incredible.
Yeah, it's so much fun watching those guys grind those games out, in Sweet 16, Elite 8, and you got 2 veteran teams fighting it out. But I want to stay with you here, Ben. I want to talk a little Major League Baseball, just from a guy that's in it, that understands it, that's been around it. How do you think this season looks? What is it? What are you hearing? Kind of, I know you had the deal. I really haven't kept up with the players and the GMs and owners and all that stuff in that agreement. Kind of, where do you see it right now?
To be honest, it's been a nightmare, to be honest with you, since end of February, early March. It's just, from the second the pandemic hit, nobody's been on the same page, players and owners. And now we finally have a little bit of structure and, a start date to a season. And it's still just like, I don't know. I'm hopeful that there's a season, but it's just like, it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be a good process. I don't think it's going to be easy. You have players testing positive left and right. My concern is, you can be as safe as possible at the field, but guys are then leaving the field and doing whatever they want. Like, it's kind of like an honor system. Like, all right, be safe at home, you guys. And it's like, let's be honest. A lot of these guys are 20, 25 years old.
Yeah, and millionaires.
They're not, right, 20, 25-year-old millionaires. They're not just going to sit in their hotel room when they go play in New York City, or if they go play in Chicago or Miami and just sit in their hotel room for 3 days. Like that's my worry. And then the next thing you know, a guy tests positive and the whole team is testing positive, and I'm worried. I'm hopeful the season starts. I'm worried it won't finish.
Yeah, that's something, and this goes for the NBA too. Michelle, talking about kind of the way they're doing it with the seeding and then the playoffs is what happens if your team gets all the way to the championship game and the night before, a player tests positive. Like, do you have to move the game? Like, what happens, Michelle, in that scenario? Like, I mean, I know you don't have an answer, but that's got to be something on the mind of NBA fans everywhere.
Well, of course it is, but even when it comes back to the baseball stuff, I've talked to multiple guys in the league, and there are a lot of guys that have tested positive that are not known. And I think that there was a quote, I forget who said it, there was a quote that said, whoever has the fewest guys testing positive for coronavirus, that's the team that's going to win the World Series. Like, that's just, I mean, it's literally coming down to that. And that's something that Ben and I have talked about, is there going to be an asterisk next to the team, whoever wins, whichever league does start and finish upon completion. We just don't know, because the people who are finishing doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the ones that were the best team. It just means that they had the least amount of coronavirus cases or the most deaths, I guess, on the team.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a great point.
It's not. I don't think sports are coming back for people to be able to know which. It's really not competition at this point, in my opinion. I think it's more about entertainment.
It does feel like a crapshoot. It's almost like, to your question, like, all right, we're getting ready for the NBA finals. Like, who's going to test positive? And that could be and that could end up who wins. Like, let's say it's Lakers Bucks. All right, is LeBron going to test positive? Is Giannis going to test positive? Whoever does, is the other team's going to win. It's like it becomes less about it. It's a weird feeling going into the season. It's almost like everyone's on edge. Like, God, I hope players on my team don't test positive. Instead of, man, I hope Ronald Acuna plays great this year.
Yeah.
And, instead it's, God, Freddie Freeman tested positive, or how are we going to be,
Yeah, it's just, I wonder too, it's such a nuanced situation, is that if it is Lakers Bucks, there's a huge difference between LeBron testing positive and Avery Bradley testing positive. I wonder if, Avery Bradley tests positive. It's like, no, we're going to play. But if LeBron or Giannis tests positive, I guarantee you they move it back. So like you said, Michelle, I thought that was a great point. Entertainment, it's really turning into, like you said, it's a battle of attrition, and that takes away, teams being at their full strength and being able to compete at the level that people are expecting to. But you got to give the people something, I guess. And I thought that was a really good point. But really kind of wrapping up here. Ben, and again, if you don't want to share it, you don't have to. I was talking to you in the pre-show, and I do want to ask you about the one at bat you had against Justin, because rumor has it that it turned out pretty well for one of you.
What do you mean if I don't want to talk about it?
Hey, I know. I just had to. I have to say that.
Yeah, it was in spring training in 2016, and I've never faced my brother in my entire life. He's 9 years older, so never actually faced him. And he came down to pitch in a AAA game, and I was on the field right next to him. And I ran up to our minor league hitting coordinator and said, "Hey, can I go face my brother?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he was just starting the game, and he said, "Yeah, hit second, but don't go out on deck. Stay like behind the dugout." And then, because he wouldn't want to face me. Yeah. And then the first guy flew out to right field. And when my brother turned around to look and watch the guy catch the ball, I ran up into the box. When he turned around, I was standing in there, and he just lost it.
Did he?
And then,
was he laughing, or was he just shocked?
Yeah, well, it was like an eye roll at first.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh my God. And then it's fun. When I left the field I was on, I told everybody over there, I was like, my brother's going to try and throw a first pitch fastball inside and break my bat and make me look dumb in front of all my friends.
Either that or hit you, right?
Well, yeah, that's what we talked about our whole life. I said, I'm going to take you deep. He said, I'm going to hit you if I ever face you.
I love it.
I hit the first pitch out, and He got mad. He got mad because I didn't go back to face him anymore. He wanted me to come back.
No, dude, that's it. No, forever.
That's it, forever.
That's so funny. So
the hardest pitch he threw all day by 3 miles an hour.
That's so. But so, are you right-handed or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Oh, did you go left field on him?
No, I he kind of left it. It was middle. It actually ended up being like middle away. My call was wrong on him trying to bring my bat. He went middle away, and I actually hit it out to like deep right center.
Wow.
It's one of the only home runs in my entire career.
That's how Tony Gwynnish of you.
I know, right?
That's awesome, and that's such a cool story. I appreciate that. It just that had me geeking in the pre-show. I just thought that was awesome because I have a brother too, and I'm older, and we were a year away from being able to play with each other in high school and everything. So I find that interesting. But Michelle, last question I have for you. And I told you I wasn't going to put you on the spot. And if you don't have an answer yet, I'm totally fine with it. Who do you have in this whole weird NBA seeding to playoffs? And I know you can't see the future and see who's going to get coronavirus, but who do you like to win it in this format?
To win the whole thing?
To win the whole shebang.
Honestly, I have to go with the Bucks, only because I just feel like they really need it. They deserve it. Like they are so good, and they've been so good, and then they just haven't won at all yet.
Yeah,
in the last couple of years. So I don't know. That was the team that was really, really hard for the Rockets to beat when I covered the Rockets in 2018, 2019. So that's the team that I always felt like was the biggest threat, and I still feel that way. So.
I like it. And I'll definitely remember that. I'm writing it down now. And Ben, to you, I want to ask you this, and you can answer the NBA one as well. But let's just say, cross our fingers, knock on wood, that we have a Major League Baseball season and it goes good. And like I told Michelle, you can't see the future with coronavirus. But let's say everybody's, most people are healthy. Who do you have winning the World Series?
So I'm going to give my unbiased take because biased, I obviously think the Astros are very, very good.
Yeah, I should have prefaced that. Your brother plays on the team. So we'll put the Astros down, and this will be your other one.
So if I'm not, I have two teams that are kind of under the radar that I really, really like this year.
God, say the Braves, Ben. Say the Braves.
I grew up a huge. Did you say the Braves?
Yes.
No, I actually grew up a huge fan. Not who I'm going to say, though.
No.
In the American League, I'm really high on the Rays, the Tampa Bay Rays. I think this season is built for them. All of their pitchers are built to not think like starters and be able to be used in any situation at any point. Mm-hmm. And you're gonna have to do that this year. They're very, 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 very good. And if you couldn't figure that out watching the Astros and Rays playoff series last year, they are incredible. And in the National League, I actually am really high on the Cincinnati Reds.
Whoa!
Really
Wait a minute. The Reds. I got a buddy that's a huge Reds fan, and he'll fall over in his chair when he hears that. Please, can you go into that? Go into that for me.
I think they have one of the best lineups in the National League. Obviously, the Dodgers have a great lineup. I think their lineup is incredible. Their starting rotation, they have Bauer, Castillo. I honestly think their lineup is and they have Suarez. I'm actually good friends with Suarez. We play with the Tigers together.
He's so good. His swing is so smooth.
I think he's going to lead the league in homers. I think he could possibly be MVP. I'm high on the man, really high. I think NLCS possibly being the Dodgers. Hot take.
I love it. I love it, and I have not heard that take yet, but I can see it. Like you said, they've got the arms. Suarez is a guy that can lead a team. He's a guy that could triple crown it, really, in my opinion, if he stays hot long enough. But guys, I really appreciate you coming on. It's Michelle Margaux and Ben Verlander from Millennial Sports Talk. It's on the Believe Network, and we got to do this again. And I swear, I'll throw some picks in there next time too.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. And in terms of our podcast, it is on the Believe Network, but it's also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, anywhere you can listen to podcasts. So thank you for that shout out. I appreciate it. And honestly, thank you so much for having us on.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Definitely. And again, make sure you go check that out. Everybody, make sure you follow him on Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. And hope to talk to y'all soon. Y'all be good and be safe out there.
Thank you. You too.
That was Ben Verlander and Michelle Margaux from the Millennial Sports Talk podcast. Really good one. They talk a little about everything, have some really good guests. Had Kurt Busch on the other day, Joe Musgrove from the Pirates, and get some really interesting perspectives. And I thought they had some really good takes. I thought the college football take was really good, talking about the teams that may not have the resources that everybody else has, kind of what we're used to in the SEC, kind of being able to do what they have to do and what they need to do to try and put themselves in the best position to get on the field. Got a little professional sports in there. Huge Cincinnati Red take from Ben. Obviously, that's Justin Verlander's brother, pitcher for the Astros, and that story about his one at bat going deep on him is that's classic. I've actually never heard something like that. I thought it was pretty cool. But as usual, thank you guys for joining us. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram at the Jboy Show. Check out our YouTube page. It's obviously the Jboy Show. We've got a Facebook page as well. As always, shout out to the Investor Brand Network, the best PR team in the business. Faison in the studio, his witchcraft and wizardry. He works up there. He's the best. And you guys are also the best. Remember to go to thejboyshow.com, brand new, and got some new segments coming out I think you guys are going to be pretty excited about. So make sure you follow us on social media. So anyway, it's another edition of the Jboy Show, and Jboy's gone.